Audi's quest to find a Formula 1 entry to take over may be on the brink of a successful ending, with a team that already has an existing manufacturer deal. Sauber may be swapping Alfa Romeo's name and colours for a new German identity in the next few years, as Audi eyes joining the F1 grid for 2026 alongside its Volkswagen Group sister company Porsche. The Alfa Romeo deal has been an important part of Sauber's revival from its financial nadir in the previous decade, but an Audi buy-in would be a much bigger opportunity. It's been a couple of months since we brought you an update on the prospective entries of Porsche and Audi. The Porsche side is easy to explain. A deal with Red Bull has been expected for a long time and just needs rubber stamping. What's holding that up is something we'll come to shortly. But what about Audi? Well, that was always looking a bit more complicated. Because while Porsche wants to piggyback onto Red Bull powertrains and focus on the marketing side of an F1 engine project with a potential option to buy into the team also still rumoured, Audi wants its own team and engine. It doesn't have any interest in starting a team from scratch and wants to buy into an existing one, then build its own engine for that team to use. This has been the known strategy for a while now, and slowly the options have been whittled down. McLaren and Williams are a no-go, and Aston Martin is too complicated. Sauber has made the most sense for several months, and a deal appears to be increasingly likely. In fact, there are already some reports that Audi will invest in Sauber in stages, prior to a full takeover by 2026, the start of the next set of engine regulations. Until then, the team would remain using Ferrari engines and probably avoid using the Audi name, potentially allowing Sauber to keep running as Alfa Romeo in the interim. A Sauber-Audi deal would be much more significant than the current Sauber-Alfa Romeo arrangement, as Audi is likely to take over a majority stake in the company rather than settle for being a glorified title sponsor. Sauber's F1 team has run under the Alfa Romeo name since 2019, having first partnered with the Italian manufacturer as a sponsor in 2018. The split in responsibilities is very clear. Sauber takes care of all sporting and technical matters, and Alfa Romeo is only interested in the commercial benefits of advertising a works F1 entry with no control of the team itself. While Alfa Romeo is delighted with the return on investment it's got from F1 so far, and it may be assumed that it would want to prolong that as long as possible, the partnership will obviously be incompatible with Sauber in the long term if the company is bought into by Audi. But Alfa Romeo's CEO Jean-Philippe Imperato says he has no problem with Sauber striking a deal with another manufacturer if it's in Sauber's best interest. In fact, Imperato told us in an exclusive interview that he supports Sauber's current owner Finn Rausing doing whatever he feels is best. Currently, Rausing's team operates slightly below the budget cap even with the financial top-up it gets from Alfa Romeo. There is a limit to what it can achieve in its present form. But Rausing is also said to feel a sense of duty towards Sauber, so it's not just about short-term prosperity and making a quick buck by selling the team. He wants to ensure its long-term security as well, so if a sufficient offer is on the table, one that also allows him to retain a minority stake in the team, then Sauber will inevitably benefit more from the investment and ambition of a manufacturer like Audi. We've still got more to get into in this topic, but if you're liking the video so far, please leave us with a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We're blown away by the support we've had so far on this channel, and we'd love to have you along for the ride. So it's easy to understand the Sauber ownership position. Selling to Audi makes a lot of sense. But why is Alfa Romeo so ambivalent towards the Sauber-Audi rumours when they potentially signal the end of such a prosperous partnership for itself? It's partly because Alfa Romeo has no interest in trying to lock itself into anything longer term, as it wants to remain flexible. Last year, Sauber and Alfa Romeo announced a multi-year extension to their agreement with yearly assessments that effectively require the deal to be renewed every 12 months. Discussions over renewing the partnership for 2023 have taken place, and confirmation Sauber will continue to run under the Alfa Romeo banner is expected this month. Beyond that though, the whole point of the way this deal is structured is for both parties to be able to keep their options open. While the Alfa Romeo money and prestige is obviously of importance to Sauber, it's not as though it shapes its entire infrastructure. After all, Alfa Romeo is a works F1 team in the loosest possible sense of the term. It's actually an extreme interpretation of an advertising campaign, title sponsorship with the perks of that sponsor being a famous car brand rather than some cryptocurrency nonsense. But that works very well for what Imperato has in mind for Alfa Romeo as a brand right now. So while he's not blind to the potential consequences of Audi's interest in Sauber, he's also pretty nonplussed. If it means his company has to exit F1 by 2026, he probably thinks that Alfa Romeo will have got plenty of return on its investment by then anyway, especially as the team is on an upward trend and its gamble on sacrificing 2021 to focus on the new technical regulations is paying off. Sauber finished 8th and 9th in the Constructors' Championship in each of its 3 seasons as Alfa Romeo so far. Halfway through the 2022 season, Alfa Romeo is 6th in the standings with new signings Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. Despite a questionable reliability record, Alfa Romeo has almost matched its points tally from 2019 already, with 11 races remaining, and is on course to score its best championship finish since 2013, before it fell into financial ruin, which this era of Sauber ownership rescued it from. Sauber's improved form, combined with the commercial benefits Alfa Romeo will be getting for relatively modest investment, means it is a no-brainer for both parties to want to continue in the short term. The nature of the deal means a short-term extension is all it will be, but that is by design. Depending on what you read, a Sauber-Audi deal is either very hypothetical, or the terms are agreed and the sale is already done in principle. But the official line from Audi, and Porsche for that matter, is that no deal can be finished before the 2026 power unit regulations are finalised, and that keeps getting delayed. As Audi wants to build its own power unit based around a V6 internal combustion engine Porsche worked on a few years ago, it has to invest in more test bench technology. But it needs key elements like the cost cap and limit on dyno hours to be finalised before such a proposal can be signed off at boardroom level. After all, why invest millions in technology that could subsequently be restricted by the regulations? Unsurprisingly, there are rumours that Ferrari, Mercedes and Renault are making life difficult for the prospective new manufacturers, Audi and Red Bull. They don't want to forfeit an advantage and have already railed against concessions like extra dyno hours and more money to spend because they feel that dropping the MGU-H from the hybrid system is already enough of a gesture towards the new manufacturers. It's easy to see the benefit of these delays if you take a cynical view. The longer the existing manufacturers drag these discussions out, the less time the new manufacturers have to prepare their first V6 turbo hybrids. Ultimately, this comes down to the FIA to make a decision on the final outstanding details and then table a vote. Although the FIA World Motorsport Council indicated recently that the 2026 rules would be rubber stamped in October, which is when the next WMSC meeting is scheduled, there will be a chance to ratify the rules long before then. There was no vote on the 2026 rules at the most recent meeting of the F1 Commission, which took place on the Friday of the Austrian Grand Prix, but this was discussed at the meeting and it was confirmed by the FIA that the package of regulations is close to finalisation, with the key vote mooted before the end of July. Sooner or later, that will bring an end to a drawn-out process that missed the FIA's self-imposed December 2021 deadline. When this finally happens, it will allow Porsche and Audi to firm up their 2026 programs, Porsche with Red Bull and Audi with Sauber. Watching this video, you may still think, I'll believe it when I hear those announcements officially, and your skepticism would be understandable and well-founded. Admittedly, Porsche and Audi entries are still not guaranteed, but if they back out now, it will mark a massive U-turn. And it would be embarrassing for F1 if the reason is because the process of thrashing out the rules ended up being too long-winded. Either way, at least it shouldn't be too long before we finally get a definitive answer.